The bridge alarms screamed in the key of Xanthori death. At 6 GS, our silicate joints began to microfracture, pinning Captain Vren to the deck. I watched my own crystalline hand begin to spiderweb under the pressure. Then I heard it. Rhythmic, heavy footsteps. Priya Sharma was walking across the bridge, casually holding a steaming ceramic mug. The part that still keeps me up at night? That comes later. For months prior, the Kalen 9 crew had celebrated the humans' arrival. We hired her because she was inexpensive. We ignored the Class 9 Deathworld warning on her file, assuming the designation referred to toxic spores or aggressive fauna rather than crushing planetary mass. A low, wet crunch. Then the alarms. That was how the anomaly hit us. But before the gravity well snagged our hull, Priya was just a nuisance. She sat at the navigation console in a vintage Earth bomber jacket. It was dark leather, worn at the elbows, and featured a prominent, yellowish coffee stain near the zipper. To a Xanthori, that stain represented biological chaos. To Priya, it was just Tuesday. I was the junior bridge officer. My job was to calibrate the sensors and stay out of the captain's way. Most days, that involved listening to Priya complain about the ship's climate control. "Xyler, is the recycler acting up again?" she asked, poking at a sensor. "This water is barely room temperature." I didn't understand the complaint. Xanthori preferred their liquids near freezing to maintain structural integrity. Priya just made a face and took another sip from her ceramic mug. The object was heavy, made of baked earth clay, and painted with a crude blue planet. Then the ship lurched. The internal compensators flickered and died. Within seconds, the gravity readout on my console spiked, climbing with a terrifying linear momentum that ignored the ship's safety protocols. 1G, 2GS, 3. For a silicate-based life form like the Xanthori, 4GS represents the absolute threshold of structural failure. My internal chassis groaned, the sound echoing like a house settling in a storm. Beside me, Chief Engineer Calyx let out a sharp, glassy snap as his shoulder joint gave way under the mounting pressure. We weren't just falling. We were being crushed into the deck plating by an invisible, relentless hand that wanted to turn our bodies into glittering dust. At 5GS, the bridge was a choir of breaking glass. Captain Vren was immobilized, his mandibles clicking in a panicked, high-frequency distress signal. Couldn't breathe. The pressure on my chest was forcing the air out of my silicate lungs, threatening to shatter my ribs. Which meant, no, it was impossible. The sound of the footsteps returned. They were slow. They were labored. But they were moving. I tilted my head, my ocular sensors blurring, and saw the dark leather of the bomber jacket. The coffee stain was the only thing I could focus on. It moved past my station, rhythmic and steady. Priya wasn't on her knees. She was upright. Her boots slammed into the metal floor with the weight of falling anvils. Yet she didn't collapse. She looked down at me, her face red, her neck muscles corded like industrial cables. "Hang on, kid," she wheezed. She reached the forward console, her movements sluggish but functional. The gravity hit 8GS. I heard a high-pitched ping. Her ceramic mug, sitting on the edge of the navigation array, developed a hairline fracture. Priya's fingers closed around the manual override. The handle was cold, notched steel, built for a machine's grip rather than a biological hand. Gravity didn't care. At 9GS, the air in the bridge felt thick as cooling lead, a crushing weight that turned the simple act of standing into a feat of impossible structural engineering. While our silicate chassis shattered and our captain lay paralyzed under a force that should have reduced any carbon-based life form to a crimson smear, Priya anchored her boots into the deck plating, her heart acting as a high-pressure hydraulic pump to force oxygenated blood toward her brain against the vertical pull of a dying ship's momentum. Her musculature didn't just bulge. It corded. Her internal skeleton acted as calcium-dense pillars that absorbed the stress of 900 pounds of mechanical resistance. And then the lever moved. The footsteps I had heard earlier, the heavy, rhythmic beat of a predator in its natural habitat, culminated in that single, agonizing pull. The gears screamed, a metallic shriek that cut through the bridge's alarms, and the ship violently stabilized. The internal gravity readout plummeted, settling at a gentle, breathable 0.8 gs. Captain Vren gasped, shedding a fine layer of fractured silicate scales. He looked up at the Navigator. Priya was leaning against the console, her breathing heavy, her face still flushed a deep, alarming red. She wasn't checking her vitals or her cracked ribs. Instead, she was looking at her sleeve. She frowned, wiping a fresh smudge of coffee from her dark leather cuff with a damp rag she kept in her pocket. It was a small, mindless gesture that made my own joints ache with the weight of the realization. To us, the anomaly was the end of the world. To her, it was an inconvenience. Navigator Sharma, the captain managed, his voice a series of dry, clicking pops. Your skeleton. How did it not turn to dust? Priya shrugged, picking up her cracked ceramic mug. Her hand was perfectly steady. This is just a light massage back home, sir. I filed the incident report that evening. I reclassified Earth as a kinetic hazard zone and requested that all gravity limiters be physically removed for the human crew members. We had hired her to press buttons, never realizing we were inviting a walking power armor suit onto our bridge. A week later, the Kalen 9 sat in a repair berth. In the center of the crew's cultural hall, a new display case stood under a focus spotlight. Inside sat the blue ceramic mug, its hairline fractures preserved like fine art behind reinforced glass. The Xanthori crew walked past it in silence, giving the corner where Priya sat reading her book a wide, reverent berth. A single cracked relic of Earth baseline,